The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
The Pats make a big-time statement on Monday night.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast.
I thought this was going to be a tough game. I thought this was going to be a tight game. I had the Patriots winning, but I had them winning 23-20, and I thought the Giants would pose a number of challenges for the Patriots. Really, none of that happened tonight. The Patriots dominated this game, and they absolutely beat down and pushed around for most of the night the Giants, winning this game 33-15, making it look easy in the process. And I'm happy when I'm wrong, when it means the Patriots win. I'm happy when I'm wrong, when it means the Patriots dominate and show the football world that they are a legitimate number one seed right now in the AFC at 11-2 after winning their 10th straight game. Let's talk about the start of this game. 30-7 right out of the gates. Shot out of a cannon. And I want everybody to appreciate this because I don't want to lose the context. I don't want to lose what this team was looking at before this game tonight. When you look at the Patriots, this was their 13th straight game. They have not had a bye yet. Fortunately, they're going to have their bye this week, and I'm sure they can't wait to relax for a few days. But this was their 13th straight game. They're coming off a game against Cincinnati in Cincinnati last weekend where I thought it was maybe their most iffy, sketchy game since the Steelers' loss at Foxborough when they turned the ball over 5 freaking times. They did not look great against Cincy. They looked tired. They looked somewhat worn down. And then you look at the offensive line. You lose your starting left tackle to IR. Now, hopefully, Will Campbell's back by the playoffs. Looks like he's going to be. You lose your starting left guard, Jared Wilson, for at least this week, maybe the next few weeks. You lost Milton Williams before the Cincinnati game, and we saw how that impacted the run defense and the defense overall. And then tonight, we find out that Kyrie's Tonga is not going to play. So you are missing the entire left side of your offensive line. You are missing 2 of your top 3 interior defensive linemen. Harold Landry went on record this week saying how banged up he is. He can't wait to get to the bye. He absolutely needs time off. He's out there battling. In what you saw, with all of that happening around this team, and many people, including myself, believing this was going to be a tight, tough game going against the Giants pass rush that can absolutely attack you all night long and make life miserable for the quarterback. This team goes out there and they look the way they looked to start this game in all 3 phases, offensively, defensively, special teams, which we'll get into in just a minute or so. And what you're witnessing is a Mike Vrabel football team that has completely, utterly, unequivocally bought in. They bought into their coach. They've bought into the culture. They've bought into playing for each other. They've bought into facing all these challenges. They don't care about obstacles. They see obstacles. They can't wait to get past those obstacles. They can't wait to prove everybody wrong that they are one of the best football teams in the NFL this year. And I'm sure they've heard about the schedule. I'm sure they've heard about their DVOA. I'm sure they've heard about all of this talk. Are the Patriots really good? Who have they really beat? Are they actually a number one seed? Yeah, we know that they're the number one seed, but do they actually really deserve to be the number one? I'm sure they've heard some of this. And I'm sure they heard some people say, man, Cincinnati last weekend, they did not look that good. They got ran over by that offense. Was not a great game by Drake May. I'm sure they heard all the questions all week long. And they went out there and they looked like a team that was motivated to prove a point. I thought the Patriots played angry tonight. I don't know what the Giants did to Christian Ellis or a member of Christian Ellis's family, but that dude was running around tanking people in the first half. That hit on Jackson Dart was unbelievable. He leveled Jackson Dart. He sent him into another dimension. And poor Gunnar Olszewski, hopefully he's okay after that hit from Christian Ellis tonight on the kickoff return, which ended up being a fumble. But that really was what the Patriots looked like in this first half. They were flying around the field. They were swarming to the football. They were unbelievably physical. They were, as Terrell Williams, hopefully he continues to do well in his treatment, as Terrell Williams and Mike Vrabel have said from the very beginning of this season, we want to be violent. What you saw tonight, especially in that first half, was a violent defense led by Christian Ellis. And they were finishing in all three phases. They were finishing with their runs on offense. They were finishing with their tackling, again, swarming aggressively to the football on defense. They were finishing their tackles on kick coverage and punt coverage. They were finishing their blocks on punt returns and kick returns. This was the perfect Mike Vrabel half of football to start this game. The first 30 minutes, Mike Vrabel wants to hang this puppy up in the Louvre. That's how good it was. Everything that Mike Vrabel wants this team to personify, they personified in that butt whooping of a first half. I mean, that is the fastest start they've had. And man, oh man, did they come out ready to play tonight. And that is a direct line to the head coach and this coaching staff. And then the special teams, the opening kickoff return. You get a great little kickoff return to start the game by Terrell Jennings, who left the game with a head injury. Hopefully he was okay. Obviously, you get the bye week. Then you have Marcus Jones doing Marcus Jones things with his punt return for a touchdown. Mike Reese posted from ESPN Research. Marcus Jones' third career punt return TD. He now has 75 career punt returns, which qualifies him for the official NFL record book. His career punt return average was 13.6 entering the game tonight, which was already the highest average in NFL history. Marcus Jones, literally with a minimum of 75 career punt returns, is the best punt returner in NFL history. Mark Daniels posted, Marcus Jones becomes the fourth player in Patriots history to return 2 punts for touchdowns, joining Troy Brown, Irving Fryer, and Mike Haynes. Marcus Jones is 100% an all-pro, hands down, no question. And he had 2 or 3 other good returns tonight. I don't know why the Giants kept punting the football to him, but they kept punting the football to Marcus Jones. Your special teams was on point. The return game on point. The coverage on point. Yeah, Andy Borregales missed a kick, 45 yards, whatever it was. He hasn't missed a kick in forever. I can live with 1 missed field goal. Right back on the horse later in the game. And meanwhile, the Giants' special teams was an atrocity. The Giants' special teams was an embarrassment. My goodness. Their kicker kicked the ground on an attempted field goal. I have never seen it. I'm sure you have never seen it. He kicked the ground. Unbelievable. They had the fumble on the kickoff return. The Giants were an absolute disaster on special teams. And the Patriots were the opposite. Shout out to Jeremy Springer, who had his guys ready to play tonight. I mean, that was almost, again, a perfect first half when this team absolutely needed it. Would they have dead legs trying to run through the tape to get to their bye? Would they look worn down and weary? Would they let the injuries affect them? You know, Mike Vrabel when he was in Tennessee, all sorts of injuries, and he always got the most out of his team, even when they were damaged by injury, when his team was a MASH unit. And here you are, 11-2, heading into the bye, the number 1 seed in the AFC.
NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
The New York Giants find another way to lose as the 2025 season falls further into the abyss.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast.
Hey, Giant fans, I'm numb, all right? I'm recording this podcast for you. It's about 12:30 at night. I'm absolutely numb. The Giants losing in embarrassing fashion to the New England Patriots. Now, originally, I had hoped to talk about some of the changes on defense, some of the, the improvements that were coming along the way. And I'm just going to rant. I mean, because this is just really getting ridiculous at this point. The Giants, just when you think they've reached rock bottom, they top themselves. And this week, it was special teams, which was just absolutely horrible. The Giants spotted the Patriots a 17-0 lead in the first quarter of the game alone. Okay, thanks to special teams miscues, including, later in the game, we saw Young Wei Koo with the kick that wasn't, which I have never, ever seen before in 30 plus years of covering this game. Missed tackles, guys not staying in their lanes. Just an embarrassing effort by the New York Giants, if you want to even call it an effort. And, just the big takeaway, I think, with this Giants team, they've lost their way. I think it's pretty obvious. This team has lost its way. It no longer knows how to win. They talk about being aggressive, and then you see things like on 4th and 1, Mike Kafka decides, we're going to punt instead of go for it, when it was basically 4th and inches. And then later on in the game, they had a 4th and 8, and they decided to go for it then. The lack of urgency later in the game, when towards the end they were running the ball to kill the clock when they were down by over 15 points. So I just think this team has lost its way. It just has. You talk about, we want to be aggressive. We want to be this. We want to be that. No. This team has lost its way. I hate to say it. You have seen the losing kind of settle into the locker room. And you know what the most heartbreaking thing was about this loss, folks? Watching Brian Burns, who has played his heart out all year long. This man has played his heart out through pain, through all kinds of stuff, through frustration. At the end of the first half, Brian Burns sat with his head in his hands on the Giants bench while the rest of his teammates went into the locker room. And Brian Burns had to basically be coaxed by his staffer to go into the locker room because he was that upset. It's almost like Brian Burns is the only one of the few people who cares about what happens, who goes out there with the intention of playing with pride. And it just, it's hard to watch. It just really is hard to watch. I mean, think about it, folks. It just seems like every week the Giants are making history of the wrong kind. This week, great, hat tip to Josh Dubois of the AP. The Giants allowed 30 points in the first half. And that's like the first time they've done that since, I think, going back to 2009. My goodness. Can this team be any worse? I just don't understand it. Discipline is lacking. Fundamentals are lacking. I mean, were there any good things to come out of this game? Jackson Dart was back. Didn't look too bad. The run defense for a while didn't look that bad. But it's just the same stuff week and week and week. I'm at a loss. I just am at a loss. I don't think the Giants have any answers. And you know what? This was supposed to be an audition for Mike Kafka to keep the job. He's not keeping this job, folks. He's just not. They just don't have any answers. And it's embarrassing. I mean, the Giants, they go into their bye week this week, thank goodness. And they're going to come back in a couple weeks and they're going to face 3 out of 4 teams that are in the NFC, and 2 of which are going to be division opponents. What makes anybody think that they're going to win another game this year? I don't think they will, and they've got the Raiders on their schedule, a team that they should easily beat. I don't think they're going to. I really don't. And it's just so frustrating, guys. I mean, I'm running out of things to say about how bad this team is. And, this was a good opportunity for the Giants to go in, to make a statement, to get a statement win. There were favorable advantages, favorable matchups for this team, and they couldn't cash in. And it's just so sad because, like I said, there are guys like Brian Burns, Jackson Dart, Tyrone Tracy, Devin Singletary, Theo Johnson. You see certain guys who care. And then you see others who are just like, another game. And we'll talk about one actually in a little bit. But the Giants, they're lost. Plain and simple, folks. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to sit here and try and spin this into a positive by going back into the game book and saying, oh, this worked out well, and this worked out well. It was a total team loss. And, it's just, they find new ways to lose every single stinking week. And I'm tired of it, and if I'm tired of it, I got to imagine you guys and gals are tired of it. So, bye week is coming up. Joe Shane is supposed to talk. I'll mention more about that in a little bit. But the Giants, 33-15, embarrassing. Just absolutely embarrassing. And there's no other way to put it. I've got to talk about Abdul Carter. Now, for the second time in the last 3 weeks, Abdul Carter committed some kind of infraction to team rules that earned him a benching. This time around, ladies and gentlemen, the benching was for the entire first quarter, while, again, the Patriots were racking up 17 points. Now, I'm not saying that Abdul Carter alone would have made a difference in those 17 points, but the bigger picture here is this kid, and I mean this kid, has better grow up. Okay? This is just not acceptable. Now, after the game, when he was asked by reporters, what happened, he basically said, stuff happens, except he didn't use the word stuff. Oh, nice attitude, kid. You're getting paid big bucks, and stuff happens. Wonderful. Says a lot about your maturity, doesn't it? Can't have that, all right? Abdul Carter is a very talented young man. He's going to be a great football player when he decides to grow up and realize this is a game that I get paid to play. All right. This is an opportunity that not everybody gets. And this immaturity with not showing up when doing what you're supposed to and being where you're supposed to be on time and letting your teammates down. You think back in the day that the Harry Carsons and the George Martins of the 1980s, you think those guys would have allowed this to go on? These other guys, these other teammates are out there, again, Brian Burns is out there busting his hump, and Abdul Carter, for whatever the reason, can't keep his schedule straight where he's, potentially missing games or practices or whatever. There's no excuse for that. And it's very disappointing, very disappointing. Abdul Carter, look, I'm a firm believer that you're all adults. They're all adults in that locker room. They should all be responsible for what they do. I'm not sure why Abdul Carter, especially after 2 weeks ago, saying that, I own up to it. I take accountability. I learned it won't happen again. And now something happened again that warranted a benching, this time for an entire quarter. I don't understand what's going on with this kid, but he better grow up because this is just not acceptable. It's just not. All right. He said, I let my team down. The message got through. All right. Don't tell me that the message got through. Show me. Now I don't pretend to know Abdul Carter very well. I've spoken to him a few times. He's always been, cordial to me and whatnot. But don't walk around, and this is the impression that I'm getting just by, what's going on with him. You're not the big man on campus anymore, rookie. Whatever you got away with at Penn State isn't going to fly here. Whatever you might have gotten away with earlier before the coaching change isn't going to fly going forward. I'd like to think that Abdul Carter is an intelligent young man, and I know he is. But this lack of responsibility, it's very, very disheartening. And, if I were his teammates, again, I'd be furious with him. They shouldn't have to be his keeper. They shouldn't have to be, come on, it's time for practice, or it's time for a meeting, or it's time for whatever. Carter's got to grow up, plain and simple. And, Kafka, he's doing what he can to drive the message home. But the fact that this has happened twice now in 3 weeks, that's disturbing. Carter also told reporters after the game that, maybe my rookie season hasn't, the transition from the college to the pros hasn't gone as smoothly as I thought it would. You think? Maybe do something about it? I get it. Look, you're in a new city, you're in a new job, but this is December now. You have been with this team since what, April? All right, this is over 6 months you're with this team. You're still adjusting? Now some people might say, oh, well, the college season, it's a little shorter than the NFL season. All right, to that I say, well, don't they play bowl games? Wasn't Abdul Carter in bowl games that extended his college season? So don't give me that as an excuse. Abdul Carter has been a disappointment. For the 3rd overall pick, a guy who is brimming with talent, who I think, once he matures is going to be one heck of a football player, he's been a disappointment. And this is a guy, remember, we were talking about, this is a potential defensive rookie of the year candidate. No. So, Carter said again, the message got through. I let my team down. It won't happen again. If it does happen again, when they come out in 2 weeks, they should bench him for the rest of the season. And not only just bench him, but fine him heavily within the parameters, that they're allowed to fine him. Because that's how he's going to get the message. All right. And it's all part of, I hate to say, it's all part of this culture that has just turned so sour. Where, again, you see certain guys just give up or mail it in. And it's terrible.
Yeah, there's a lot to fix with Michigan State football, but amongst them on the top of the list, recruiting. Can Pat Fitzgerald solve all of our problems?
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans.
How do you parse this whole Pat Fitzgerald hiring for Michigan State? Because on one hand, this guy at Northwestern, he always had his classes ranked somewhere around the 50s. It wasn't a recruiting juggernaut necessarily. And also, he's been out of the college coaching game for 3 years. But on the other hand, let's not kid ourselves. Michigan State doesn't have the same limitations, both academic and resource-wise, as Northwestern. You almost understand how he was always in the 50s over there. So, Alan, can Pat Fitzgerald solve the recruiting issues here at Michigan State, or what do you make of this whole hiring for the Spartans?
Yeah, so I think that the recruiting is always a part of a hire, right? And I deal with recruiting entirely.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk a lot about recruiting, but there's more to a coaching hire than just recruiting. And I think Pat Fitzgerald brings some of this. He was an all Big Ten linebacker. He brings understanding of how to win and play in the Big Ten. I really think for him to have gotten Northwestern into some Big Ten championship games and into that discussion with those recruiting classes that you mentioned were not at the top of the conference, that's an accomplishment. And so that's the first part of my answer. But in terms of fixing recruiting, I think that part is going to have to remain to be seen because he hasn't recruited at a program like Michigan State before. Northwestern is kind of its own animal when it comes to the Big Ten. It's like a Stanford or a Vanderbilt or places like that. And at the time, you could see him start to put some of he started to understand that if we want to sustain the success at Northwestern, we're going to have to update the way we recruit. He recruited in a very developmental way, I'm going to find guys that fit what I want to do, almost in like a early Mark D'Antonio way of I'm going to find guys under the radar. We're going to win with dudes that have this chip on their shoulder. And that brings you a certain level of success. And then I think he started to say, we want to sustain this. If we want to beat Ohio State and they're going to put first round receivers out there, we have to change our recruiting approach. And you can see that happening at Northwestern now. Northwestern, I think, has a pretty good class this year, but the facilities, beautiful, beautiful place. Yeah. They're putting in a new field, right? That'll be done too. A lot of those wheels were set in motion by Pat Fitzgerald, understanding that he was going to have to do something different in recruiting than what Northwestern had done traditionally. So I think he gets it. And I think he's going to know that he's going to have to bring on a staff that will help him do that at Michigan State. He can't do that alone. And I think you could see some of the pieces of that coming together late in his Northwestern tenure when they started to win some recruiting battles. Peter Skoronsky was a 5-star. Couple other guys, Josh Preeb from Michigan, Caleb Tiernan, who's going to be a high pick. Now those guys were 4-star recruits. So they've won some recruiting battles here and there.
Maybe you could do a better job of explaining just how behind the eight ball Northwestern can be with their academic restrictions, the resources. Like, how hard was it to recruit Northwestern for Pat Fitzgerald? And you could take that two ways. One, even before the NIL era, because certainly it wasn't great shakes back then, but even as the NIL era started to blossom at the end of Pat Fitzgerald's tenure, like, is it what everyone's making it out to be? Like, it is just so much harder to recruit there, or is that a little overblown in your opinion?
I don't think it's overblown. And I've known people who have worked there in recruiting and assistants who have shared with me some of the frustrations of like, this place is great. Obviously, if my kids had a chance to go to school here, you'd send them to school there, right? Academically, the campus is beautiful, great location. But in terms of recruiting football players against some of the schools that are in the conference, it's tough when you don't have the same home game type atmosphere. That's why they wanted to update that. You didn't have the same facilities. That's why they needed to update that. Then on top of that, you have academic restriction. It is. I don't think that part of it is overblown at all. And so Northwestern, it's kind of like, they ended up getting things done, but there's no doubt that it's more difficult to recruit and win there than it is at other places.
So with early signing day or just straight up signing day coming up on Wednesday here, what kind of a day is Michigan State going to have? Because that was one of my first thoughts as, hey, all this Pat Fitzgerald motion right after firing Jonathan Smith is just about 72 hours before this day comes around. Now, we have heard from some players here, like you guys reported earlier today, that Cade Kaufman, the 4-star quarterback, he's still locked in for the class. 4-star tight end Joey Caudle, he's still going to be locked in. Tristan Comer made an announcement that he is still in. Wide receiver Zach Washington, still committed, but he's opening up his recruitment to see if anything happens in the next few days. How can you blame the kid? What kind of a day are you expecting for Michigan State? Do you think largely this whole class will stay intact, or is this going to be a class that kind of settles in just like 11, 12, 13 kids? I got to know your answer here, Alan.
Yeah, so the first thing I would tell Michigan State fans is you have to set your expectations fairly low for Wednesday. I mean, this just right. Like this hire is it's not about Wednesday, right? It's about the future. Yeah. But I think you have to take the small victories where you can. Not all these, and some of these victories, I think keeping those guys in the class, those are pretty big victories.
Yeah, I would say
some of those guys easily could have. I know Joey got some offers recently. Cade, there's been a lot of schools that have kicked the tires on him. So even though maybe that was all happening behind the scenes and not everybody was aware of how much other schools were coming at those kids, keeping those guys in the class, first of all, that's a win. So you should be happy that with a coaching change this close to the early signing period, that you're signing anybody, and these guys aren't all waiting till February.
Right.
So I think that's a positive sign. And I think that Pat Fitzgerald's cachet has something to do with that. I think Jonathan Smith and his staff deserve a huge bit of credit for saving this class too. They've recruited these guys all through the fall. They were still in contact with Cade. They were hosting guys on official visits yesterday, so
I noticed that. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was strange.
yeah.
I thought like, oh my God, is this thing going to stay intact? That they reverse course. So I'm glad you
You
brought
do
that
the
up.
job until you're not doing the job, and
Credit to them. Yeah.
huge respect for that. So Wednesday, if you keep most of the class together, I think that's the best expectation. And then from there, you have to see. I think it's the second signing day that's going to be interesting. What's the philosophy?
Sure.
Who's left out there after Wednesday that we can go after, or do we go more portal for now? And then you really look at the 2027 class. But I would expect them to at least look and see who's left in 26. And I think because this early signing period is even earlier now, normally there would be, not I say normally, but for the last couple of years, there would be still a couple of weeks left. Now with it being this early, I think you may see more kids wait to February. Not a ton of them, but more than in other years. And so maybe there'll be a chance for them to pick up, a couple sleepers or some guys who decided to wait.
NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
After a long search, UCLA has finally found their head coach.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins.
The Bruins have finally done it. Pete Nakos has reported, I've seen Bruin Report online also somewhat confirm it as well. UCLA is expecting to hire Bob Chesney, a 48-year-old head coach from James Madison. He just coached his James Madison Dukes to the Sun Belt Championship game, undefeated in conference, 11-1 this year. And for all the talk of UCLA trying to find the Curt Cignetti, whether it was somebody who built his way up in the ranks, somebody who's been a winner at every place, did he have to be arrogant and brash? Did he just have to win at James Madison like Curt Cignetti did? Well, UCLA has gotten a proven winner at every step of the game. Somebody who literally did the same thing as Curt Cignetti and bring James Madison to continued success. Not just drop the ball, but continued success from making the leap up from Holy Cross. And when Bob Chesney was at Holy Cross, he also had success. So from D3, D2, to the FCS, to the FBS, a 2QB system. Everything has been successful for Chesney. And if you want a program builder, this is the guy. Somebody who can bring in energy, but also not trying to be too flashy with no substance. This is the right guy that can come in and just lead to success. Because we've had too many coaches come in here and say, we've got a lot going on, and nothing goes on, other than maybe Jim Mora. Then you had Chip Kelly, who came in here and did nothing in terms of vocal. Then you had Deshaun Foster, who was fumbling through his first couple of words of Big Ten media days and did okay recruiting, but in the end, it really came down burning and crashing down hard. But Bob Chesney comes in here 20-5 in his 2 years at James Madison. They're in the Sun Belt title game. And if the Dukes do make the CFP because of the ACC craziness, Chesney is potentially expected to coach James Madison through the CFP. So there is some good and bad news here. UCLA has got the right guy, considering early signing day is pretty much upon us. UCLA can't exactly rebuild their early signing day class, but maybe they can go back on the later signing day, hit the portal hard. And for what UCLA needs is, are we rooting against James Madison? Because the earlier James Madison loses, then you get Bob Chesney over to UCLA. Either way, you got a young head coach who, as much as has been leaping and growing through the system, I would like to believe this is a guy who can come stay. I've seen from Football Scoop just the other day that UCLA was willing to give him about a $6 to $7 million deal, but it's already been informed that he has informed his players he is going to take the UCLA job. 44-21 at Holy Cross. Holy Cross didn't really win before Chesney was there. 44-16 at Assumption College. All right. This is a guy that at colleges you never even heard of, at levels you've never even watched of college football, has taken dumpster fires and turned them into winners. And while James Madison wasn't exactly in that case when Curt Cignetti left, Cignetti took a lot of good players to Indiana and led them to the CFP. Well, they didn't drop the ball when Chesney came in. They kept succeeding. And with the portal, yes, you can have success one year, but you can really drop and tank the next year. Chesney didn't let that happen over the last 2 years. So this is huge for UCLA, considering one, there's the Lane Kiffin fallout. There's a bunch of other coaches. Michigan State literally fired and is basically hiring a coach in the same day. Kentucky's firing a coach, apparently rumored to get Chip Kelly. Who knows? But with everybody making their move, Cal leaning in on an Oregon coordinator, everybody up and down the coast making different coaching switches or flirting with other jobs, UCLA has had their opening the longest alongside Virginia Tech. Well, Virginia Tech swung big with James Franklin. UCLA is, in their mind, swinging big with the right guy. Not for a big name, no substance guy. Not for some, all right, flash in the pan, somebody from the group of five that could be maybe something. Sean Lewis, not saying that he's not successful, might be a year or two away from making the leap from San Diego State. Or a return to glory guy like Dan Mullen trying to work his way back through the ranks. Jason Eck might be a year or two away. But Chesney is the guy that comes in at the right time. He's done enough at the D1 level, both FCS, group of five, to arguably have the best group of five team out there. If you're battling between the two lanes, the James Madisons of the world, if things break his way, James Madison could find themselves in a playoff spot, and that's after their head man just left 2 years ago. That is how good Chesney is. Now, can he bring East Coast recruiting to the West Coast and establish a firm foundation on, hey, we can go national recruiting? UCLA already showcased, before Deshaun Foster was fired, the ability to go into Massachusetts, to go into Florida, find some talent in Texas, because there's plenty over in that region on the eastern side, the middle part of the state, the south, and then just hold serve in recruiting on the West Coast in Southern California, and all of a sudden, UCLA can be a contender in recruiting again. And if you listen to a quote I've seen Bob Chesney put out there about Bob Chesney, when coaches come through, he's like, give me 2 things you liked about our practice, 2 things we need to improve upon. Always tinkering in the right ways, always wanting to improve. And it seems like he's just the right fit for a UCLA athletic department that could be in shambles, for a coaching search committee that was put in, and all of a sudden, UCLA gets the job done. Now, the interesting question is, who is Chesney going to answer to, right? Is this a guy that's going to answer to Martin Jarmont? Is he going to answer to Julio Frank? Is it like, Martin might be the guy he's talking to for now, but Frank pulled the final string and said yes? These are all intriguing stuff, or intriguing parts, because Bob Myers, who was a part of this coaching search committee on the UC Regents, put together this whole thing of, hey, we need to pay a guy big money. So when Chesney was potentially looking at other spots, as he should, UCLA had a good enough compensation package to bring him to UCLA, which is certainly a lot better than James Madison, even if UCLA lowballed him. But to bring him here and showcase they have the commitment and the wherewithal to bring UCLA football back to prominence wherever they play, they went in the right direction. Absolutely in the right direction. Innovative with what they're doing offensively, continued success regardless of the level, and from what I heard, they wanted a winner. UCLA has their winner. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. As embarrassing as that 2025 season was, UCLA had their 2 years, let's make it just a blip on the radar, and they finally came through. Think about Michigan State, that same cycle that UCLA had an opening, and they're already changing head coaches because Jonathan Smith didn't work out. Tony White, who was potentially available, might be the scapegoat at Florida State, considering Mike Norvell almost lost his job again at Florida State as the defensive coordinator. He was a guy in. And UCLA weeded through all of it. They let things play out. Didn't get crazy in a Lane Kiffin flirtation or something similar on the West Coast, which would have been Jed Fish, the West Coast equivalent of Lane Kiffin, right? That's what Jed Fish would have represented to UCLA, whether he's trying to get more money at Washington or he thought about leaving to UCLA. Either way, UCLA is putting themselves in the right direction. The right direction, finally. Some good news. The only thing is, if James Madison loses, the sooner it happens, the quicker UCLA can get on the ground running immediately. All right? They can absolutely do this. The real questions are, how much is UCLA going to figure out this NIL situation, considering Bruins for Life was in shambles? Where will UCLA play? How much support are they going to give Chesney to retain assistants, go get new assistants? Those are all fascinating questions. But for now, the expectation, according to Pete Nakos, who got the story first, was that UCLA has their man in Chesney. It's been rumored, it's been building, and now it's all said and done. UCLA is getting their main man. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. Forget the embarrassment. Let's get ready to rock and roll. All right. I'm not talking about any monopoly right now. I'm not going to make some big, crazy quotes. UCLA is just going to be firm, brick by brick by brick. They're just going to foundation all the way up. And I think UCLA is, I'm excited. All right. It's not as exciting as LSU is or as hateful as Ole Miss might be or what Jed Fish could be. This dude's a winner. And he's going to win. Whether it's 5 years, whether it's 10 years, he will bring UCLA in a winning formula that's succeeded at every stop he's had to lead the Bruins into the next level, into the NIL age. Welcome to the Big Ten, just 2 years late. That's where the Bruins will be. Not going to say they're to go out and do something crazy next year, but there will be sustained success and immediate changes implemented to the Bruins workout regimen, to just their discipline. Everything together will work. That's just my assumption. That's my opinion for UCLA.
NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
The Chargers did what they needed to do, blowing out the Raiders on Sunday, but it came at a major cost as star quarterback Justin Herbert broke his hand.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers.
Obviously, a big win, but the biggest story right now is Justin Herbert's hand.
Yeah, another injury for Justin Herbert to have to fight through. Fortunately, Justin Herbert is as tough as they come, and we've seen him battle through injuries before, and I am very confident he is going to do so again.
Well, if you ask him, he's planning on playing on Monday Night Football. But today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. David, the Chargers did exactly what we hoped they would do on Sunday. We didn't want them to be playing a tight game. You wanted them to come out and be able to show the improvements that were made during the bye week, and maybe more than that, show that they had that effort restored, that energy restored, get back to looking like the team that went on the 3-game winning streak, unlike the team that got blown out by the Jacksonville Jaguars. But they were able to get that done at a cost because Justin Herbert broke his left hand. We found out from Jim Harbaugh after the game. I didn't know he broke his hand because the next play after that, he threw a touchdown to Quentin Johnston. So his toughness will never be questioned. We know he's only missed games one time with as many injuries as he's had. Fractured rib cartilage, right? Broken fingers on his left hand and played through it in 2023. We know he had, patellar tendon stuff last year, played through it. He's come out of games. He's only missed games in one season. That was that 2023 season from hell. As of right now, Jim Harbaugh says that Justin Herbert is going to get a procedure on Monday, and he's unsure if he is going to miss time. And Justin Herbert is saying that the doctors are hopeful they will be able to stabilize it, and that they feel hopeful he's actually going to be able to somehow return on Monday Night Football against the Eagles.
Well, if you know Justin Herbert, then you know how tough that guy is. You know how crazy the injuries that he's played through. lesser men would not be able to do it, quite frankly. I mean, Justin Herbert's cut from a different cloth. That's why he's the leader of this franchise, a guy that, he may not speak it, he may not talk about it, but he's going to go show it, and he's going to go prove it time and time and time again. And this is just another example to continue the tradition of quarterbacks that fight through injuries for the Chargers. Obviously, we saw it with Phillip Rivers when he played through tearing his ACL, having surgery, and playing the very next week. That's the type of kind of lineage that you have with this football franchise. And I think Justin Herbert is going to be out there. I feel confident that he is going to be, as long as everything goes well with this procedure that they do tomorrow. Justin Herbert is going to be out there. He knows that this stretch of football games is super important. It's basically a playoff time right now. If you want to be able to get to the playoffs, you got to get a couple of more wins. And I don't know how you can feel good about your prospects of the Chargers getting those wins without number 10 suiting up and leading the team on Sundays.
One shout out to Trey Lance, who I thought, looked decent in his small amount of time in this game. Justin Herbert had to go to the locker room, and he was not able to come back out there and be there for the next offensive drive. So Trey Lance, take some snaps. Ran it a couple times, did have a fumble they got bailed out on because of a false start. But I do think that, yes, if you could plan all week knowing you have Trey Lance, maybe you could win some games. The 5 games they have left on their schedule, I don't know if you'd feel good about any of those games. Like, Trey Lance might have been able to beat the Raiders on Sunday. I'll say it like that. Against the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Texans, the Broncos, the Chiefs, I just don't think so. So it would be huge if he could come back, but it's what version of him comes back, because in this game, after he returned, the Chargers were unable to take any snaps under center, and it came back to almost bite them immediately. They got down into the red zone. It was a 4th and 1. He can't get on under center to do the tush push, to run a quarterback sneak. They've been one of the best quarterback sneak teams in the NFL so far this season. When you have a 6'6", 240-pound quarterback, that should always be your number one option on 4th and 1 like that. They can't do it. They decide to run it anyways, which I think was pretty dumb, out of the shotgun, and Kamani Vidal gets dropped for a loss. You come up empty in the end zone, and that was on the 4th down, and that was like the story of this game. The Chargers got off to such a slow start and were able to overcome it. But I think what the Chargers are going to have to kind of, reckon with this week is just, if he's limited to the point where it changes our offense drastically on Monday Night Football, and if we give him an extra week off, could he be back under center? Could the offense look more normal? Do you do it? But I mean, Justin Herbert, man, who knows? When he was at that podium, I believed him when he said he was planning on being out there for Monday Night Football. But that is really what this game was, David, because the Chargers really, really struggled early and had 2 red zone trips that ended up with 0 points and a terrible interception by Justin Herbert. And then in the second half, they came out and pulled away.
Yeah, they absolutely did. The first half was like, oh no, it was nightmare fuel, right? I was like, there's no way that we're at halftime and we're tied with this football team. There's just absolutely no way that this should be the case. After a bye week, after you have time to be able to get things right, it looked like they were heading towards another Jacksonville type of performance against this type of team, which you just can't have at all. And fortunately, they turned it on in the second half. 24 points they scored in the second half, and they got rolling. And that was massive for them to be able to have that performance in the first half, be able to shake it off, regroup, reset, and go out there and dominate, quite frankly, in the second half, to where at the end they added a touchdown they didn't really need to add, but I'm all for it. It was all about stepping on their neck and finishing it and sweeping the Raiders and being undefeated in the AFC West this season. It was absolutely a tale of two halves. Fortunately for the Chargers, they were a lot better in the second half when it counts.
Yeah, and that's what you want to be. You want to be a second half team. You want to be a fourth quarter team. And that was so frustrating, was one of the biggest issues in the first half of the season before the bye week, was just converting in the red zone. So when you have 2 back-to-back red zone opportunities, one coming from your defense, getting an incredible interception from Tony Jefferson, to come up empty on those, right? And it just felt like those 2 drives would have been different if they could have used Justin Herbert, because before Justin Herbert threw that goal line interception, they had it on the 1-yard line. They could have tried to sneak it in there. They couldn't do that. They tried to run it out of shotgun, got dropped for a loss, and then especially with the space that condensed that deep in the red zone. They had to throw the ball. He throws it late. It was a bad interception for all the unluckiness he's had this year. That one fully on him. You have to throw that ball away and take the 3 points there. But it was about them being able to pull away in the second half. And I thought the most encouraging thing here, David, was them winning in the trenches, like getting back to being a trenches team. This game, they dominated. The offensive line and the running game dominated the Raiders' defensive line. And then defensively, the Chargers absolutely stuffed them whenever they tried to run the football. So the one thing you can control is your effort. The one thing we know Jim Harbaugh wants to be is a physical trenches team. It actually looked that way on Sunday. And there was times, especially in that Jacksonville game, when he said they got out physical, Jim Harbaugh did, that you didn't feel that way about this team.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see it. I mean, for us, like, we've watched every single Chargers game pretty much our entire lives. So I think, we've been covering this team for 10 years. We can see when the effort, the energy, the physicality and violence is there and when it's not there. It's completely clear and obvious to me every single time because it looks different. It looks like a different football team. Against the Jacksonville Jaguars, there was no physicality from anybody not named Khalil Mack. I mean, to me, it was a horrendous and completely unacceptable performance. In this game, from the very, very beginning, we saw that physicality and violence on both sides of the ball. Going forward in the running game and dictating and opening up holes from everybody, including Trey Harris, who is an absolute beast in run blocking and getting his guy out of the way just every single time. That guy is a weapon in that department. But on the defensive line, the offensive line, they were dictating this game. And whenever you can do that, whenever you can dominate the line of scrimmage, you're going to win a lot of football games.
NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
The Phoenix Suns absolutely decimate the Los Angeles Lakers in the second half.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast.
The Phoenix Suns absolutely decimate the Los Angeles Lakers tonight. I've got a lot of numbers to throw at you because Colin Gillespie might just be a budding star. Dylan Brooks continues to do the things that Dylan Brooks continues. So this is going to change as the season progresses and as Dylan Brooks continues to transform into a borderline all-star level player. But day by day, that Houston Rockets Kevin Durant trade looks better and better. Every single day, this trade gets better and better. I think the Houston Rockets are going to miss Dylan Brooks, as said in the offseason, more than some people are letting on. But his ability to continuously hit tough shots, he has now added this turnaround jump shot that he likes. He likes to do it from his right side. He'll kind of pivot over to his right side and put it over the defender. Like, it's kind of a clunky looking shot, but it's nylon every single time. But first, let me get into this. The Suns tonight, I thought they were going to get boat raced at first. Now, to be fair, I picked this team to win tonight's game for a multitude of reasons. One of them being the Lakers defense, I just don't believe in as much as everyone else, because, and I'm not going to act like everyone is super, in the Los Angeles Lakers defense, but they're 17th in defensive rating and they're really old. That's not a young team. It's not a spry team. Yeah, DeAndre Ayton's 26, but one of the problems with DeAndre Ayton is his motor issue. He doesn't want to play every night. Luka Doncic is not an old player, but he's sloppy on defense. Austin Reeves is like a pesky defensive player, but he's small. LeBron James is old. He's a net negative defensively now. How many times did Dylan Brooks go up against LeBron James today and have no issues with it whatsoever? That team obviously would do the Anthony Davis, Luka Doncic trade 100 times out of 100 again, but they miss his presence defensively. And the Suns got into a track meet with them. But to start this game, Luka Doncic had 20 points in the first quarter. It's the most points a player has had on the Phoenix Suns in one quarter all game, surpassing Anthony Edwards, which is kind of funny because they also lost that game too. But he had 20 points in that first quarter, and he was cooking the Suns. And I don't even think the Suns' defense was that bad. Luka is going to get away with that little shoulder rub he does. Everyone's got it. You know, James Harden and Allen Iverson. You know, James Harden got in trouble for traveling every time in a step, or never got in trouble for traveling in a step back three. And Allen Iverson, never got in trouble for carrying the ball. Some guys just have a signature move that referees just kind of let slide, especially in the regular season. And that little elbow that Luka Doncic gives players in the low post, in the mid-range, and oftentimes in his step back three, they're just not going to call. And I thought Ryan Dunn was superb on him early. Obviously, he's not probably a little bit of minute restrictions given that wrist injury. And Luka took advantage of it. And it didn't matter who was on him. Dylan Brooks, even Ryan Dunn once or twice. Colin Gillespie got on him, which I thought was kind of funny at one point. He literally ragdolled Colin Gillespie. Colin Gillespie ended up having the last laugh. But I thought the Lakers were on the precipice of kind of bulldozing over the Suns. And part of that was compounded by the Devin Booker injury, which we'll talk more about in the last segment. But part of it was compounded by, the Suns are tied 31-31 in that first quarter, but Luka Doncic is on a bit of a heater, and your best player, who was starting to look good, started off this game 4 for 7, just got hurt. And I'm thinking to myself, even at halftime, man, they're up in this game. I don't know how they're going to keep this rhythm going. You have to have consistent shot makers. But one of the things that I didn't run and rack through my mind is maybe they just have those consistent shot makers. And we'll get to Colin Gillespie and Dylan Brooks in just a second, but it is a testament to what the Phoenix Suns are doing, especially defensively. They don't need to have this elite level offense, and they don't right now. They've fallen out of the top 10 in offensive rating. Right now, this game not included tonight, the Suns, let me do some quick math. The Suns have played now their 21st game of the season. The offensive rating has the Suns, at the 21st game of the season. So it is officially updated. It wasn't 5 minutes ago, but it is now. And the Suns are the 14th ranked team offensively. They're not this elite level offensive team. They're somewhere right in the middle. And defensively, they're kind of hovering over in that same place in defensive rating, 14th. But what they do in stints, especially in that second quarter, is get on these massive runs that are tailored off of the Suns forcing these turnovers and getting into track meets with the Los Angeles Lakers. Tonight, the Suns, for some reason this isn't loading here, but for some reason, I had the total turnovers here. For some reason, the total turnovers aren't loading on ESPN's, but the Suns forced some turnovers tonight in that second quarter that led to easy buckets the other direction. I apologize. I don't know why ESPN statistics in front of me are just kind of dumbing out on me, but they don't have the turnovers on here, probably because there were so many for the Lakers, and why would you want to make fun of their national team? But the Suns in the second quarter pushed the Lakers around defensively, made them get into a track meet, and got a lot of easy buckets at the basket. One thing that has been a little underrated for this team this year is just how good they are passing the basketball. And it has really helped out players like Oso Ighodaro have a role in this offense. Multiple times, even when the Suns threw a turnover out of it, they were looking for the first one that pops out of me is in the first quarter, Oso Ighodaro finds Ryan Dunn on a backdoor cut. Beautiful pass, but the ball goes out of bounds because Ryan Dunn just wasn't expecting it. This team's ability to pass and find the open man, the way the ball doesn't just stick in players' hands all the time like it did last season, is a night and day difference from last year to this year. The ball is constantly moving with this team, and it makes it really hard to defend, especially an older team like the Lakers, who got to move laterally to the right. Now they got to move laterally to the left. Don't get caught flat-footed because Colin Gillespie or Dylan Brooks might just drive right by you. And the Suns used the kryptonite that was the Suns' kryptonite last year. The Lakers are an older team that doesn't play a lot of defense. And when I say older team, I'm not saying that they're, the Golden State Warriors right now, but they're not necessarily a young team, and their top to bottom players don't really play a lot of defense. Austin Reeves, not a great defender. Luka Doncic, bad defender. LeBron James, at this point, bad defender. And this Suns team, who's younger, twitchier, more athletic, and likes to get out in pace and run, made the Lakers play their game today. How many times in that second quarter did the Suns find a free outlet pass, beautiful pass, whether it was to Mark Williams or to Dylan Brooks, underneath for easy buckets? They just caught the Lakers napping, and save me, the Lakers are tired thing. LeBron James, first off, did not play yesterday in their back-to-back. Secondly, it was the second night of a back-to-back when they were at home, and they also played the Pelicans last night. It's not like they were in a dogfight with the Houston Rockets. I don't even know what the score was to that Pelicans game yesterday. I'm just curious what it was as well, if we're talking about a back-to-back. But they beat the Pelicans last night 133-121. Like, what are we doing here? But again, it backs up my points here as I'm looking at. The Lakers have allowed 118, 119, 121 points, and now 125 points in their last 4 games. And the Suns turned it on their head. The Suns completely turned it on their head for the Los Angeles Lakers tonight. And going back, just so we're clear, again, my eyes don't deceive me watching the game. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love watching the game, guessing what I think the statistics are going to say, and then it tells me, oh, I actually watched the game. My eyes weren't lying to me. The Lakers had 22 turnovers tonight. Would you like to know how many points were conceded off turnovers? Go ahead. Take a guess. 32. And the Suns' fast break points tonight, take a guess. Dude, this is crazy. If you're in your car driving right now, or if you're watching this post game, pause this, take a guess at how many fast break points the Phoenix Suns had tonight, and then guess how many the Lakers had. The Suns had 28 fast break points tonight. The Lakers had 2. The Suns played their game and didn't let the Lakers get into theirs. You know what the Lakers like to do? Slow the game down. Be a stagnant offense, but in a good way. They'll give it to Luka Doncic. They'll let him cook. They'll let him get his buckets. They'll want to get to the foul line. And the Suns didn't allow them to do that tonight. Here's another statistic for you. The Lakers average 20 free throws made, not 20 free throws attempted a game. They average 20 free throws made a game. The Lakers have not been a good three-point shooting team ever since LeBron James has been there. They make their money getting down the lane, bullying the opposing team, and foul baiting, of course. Austin Reeves is a notorious foul baiter. Luka Doncic is. LeBron James was foul baiting a ton in this game. But credit to the Phoenix Suns, who are physical but don't foul. That was brought up last night by my guy Hayden Silly of Clutch Points. The Lakers average 20 free throws made a game. They had 15 free throw attempts tonight, meaning the Suns did not let them play their game.